All right, hi everybody, and welcome. Good morning. This is Barclay Brown with the Hart Initiative. This is the Hart Studio Show, where we bring you all sorts of art and artists from Savannah and elsewhere, and interesting things about art and what the artists and what they're doing, the art of business, the business of art, involved in all sorts of things. So I'm here today with, I'll introduce our folks from Hart first. So Honor Allison Lynn, say hi, Honor.
Hi.
The founder and executive director of the Hart Initiative. And Mindy Shea, also a board member in the Hart Initiative, and a longtime person in Savannah, you know, in connected to everything in Savannah, I would say, right? So that's fantastic.
Thank you.
So we will give a special welcome to our guest today. Elbi Elm is here with us. She's an artist and an entrepreneur. Grew up in the general Savannah area, has been a lot of other places, and kind of come back home and doing some real interesting things that we'll get into in a moment. She's a artist and an entrepreneur, and a champion of diversity and equity and inclusion and that sort of thing, championing that in Savannah and other places, and also a mother. Can't leave that out, right? So let's just jump right in. So welcome, Elbi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, and you know, I want to start with this. So, you know, growing up, were you always into art as a child? Was that something you gravitated to early on? It figured prominently in your later life, but you went through some other interesting different places before you got to where you are now. So did you start out kind of with this art thing?
Absolutely. Not art in the medium of painting, drawing, but art as performing art, singing.
Performing art. Mm-hmm.
I used to have little, groups that we would sing and put on concerts and have the community pay us, $1, and they would get their little zebra cakes and their Capri Sun.
See, the early seeds of entrepreneurship were there, along with the art, right?
That's great.
And we would put on these shows, and we would have 10, 15 people show up, and it just a fun time. So we used to do that all throughout my childhood.
Okay, so it was art, but it was also producing things, promoting things. There's a kind of a skill set and an interest kind of building there that we see expressed, later on.
Absolutely.
Now, of course, the very logical process then was going from that childhood interest to going into the Air Force. So that would, as a very logical step, right? So maybe you could explain that a little bit of how that worked.
So I wanted to go to school because I really wanted to work for J Records and Clive Davis. He was somebody who I just was like, I'm gonna go work for Clive Davis. I'm gonna move to New York. I'm gonna eat ramen noodles, and I'm just gonna live this hobo artist, gypsy-ish type life or lifestyle. And my parents were like, no. No.
No, how about the Air Force? No, it wasn't.
Well, and my dad,
like
he's an Army vet. He retired after 24 years, so he was active duty Army at the time. And he's someone who believes that every American should serve at least one tour and learn discipline and leadership and everything. So he pretty much drove me to the recruiter's lot and said, pick one. And
wow.
Okay,
oh, wow.
I don't really like to run, so the Marines is out. I can't swim very well, so let's cut the Navy. You're in the Army, not feeling that, so I guess I'll go with the Air Force. And so
process of elimination. There we go.
I tested it. I tested on the ASVAB. I thought that I was going to do what they call AFN, which is their Armed Forces Network for journalism and art and things like that. But you had to wait an entire year or 2 years to get into that school. And I was independent. I was just graduated high school, so I was ready to go. So I went into Intel instead. I thought, I'll be a spy. It's not what you see on
there you
TV,
go.
I promise you.
Sounds exciting.
It's not. It's not. And so I did Intel, and I went in 2 weeks after I graduated high school.
All right. So regardless of the coercion, that led you into the Air Force, what that might be too strong a word. Hope your parents aren't listening. But what did you learn? What did that do with you as a person? So here's this artist in the Air Force. So how did that come together and build a foundation for who you then became later on? Can you pull that thread a little bit for us?
Absolutely. So I think, for one, I learned a lot of discipline. I learned a lot of discipline. I learned a lot of and a lot of attention to detail and a lot of working with a team and pulling people in to get your vision or your mission accomplished. And so the cool thing about being in intelligence is you really are surrounded by a bunch of introverts. And so as an extrovert, I had to learn how to operate with people who don't necessarily act like me or have the same lifestyle that I do or have the same, interest or values that and so you learn how to adapt. And then you start looking for outlets. So I started at one base that I was in Japan. I started a choir there, and and then in another base in Maryland, I created this community service project where we would go into the YMCAs or the community centers there and put on little shows for the kids and do toy drives and all these things that kind of feed who I am and my artistic integrity, but also keeps me in line with Air Force standards.
Well, it's fantastic. You're what some people might call a promoter, a natural promoter. I don't know if that kind of fits for you, but I can relate to that some, and I think Honor and Mindy also have a lot of that in us too, right?
Well, Mindy and I both have a theater background. We grew up in the theater as well.
Right.
It's not just enough to have some artistic drive and make some art, but you want to like take it out there, like promote it, like make it into a thing, like just like you did as a child, right? And so it's not just I want to sing in the choir. No, I'm going to create a choir and I'm going to build it and everything.
I don't know. I feel like I had a sergeant tell me one time, like, you just always got to do things, the extra hard way. And I'm like, you just can't go and sing the national anthem. You got to go and make a choir and promote it.
Yeah, that's it.
Try to get funding for the choir and new uniforms. So
I just want to ask a question. So interesting though, because as a young entrepreneur, as a child growing up, and then now providing yet another service that you brought the arts into the Air Force, were you also working with the families to provide kind of like an entertainment outlet for the kids there too? I'm just curious.
At the time I didn't have my son, so I didn't think about family.
Oh, okay.
I think, a young person, I was very narrow-minded, thinking about how can I do this for my peers. Right?
Oh, gotcha.
And so I just wanted to do it for the peers. And when we did a community services out in the community, out for civilians, we did a lot of, work with the children, local children, because what I've noticed is that we would be on a base and it was kind of like an island, military families kind of stuck together, military people kind of stuck together, but then there's a whole community of people right outside of the base who, to be honest, just weren't doing that well. And so I was like, I want them to know that we're here and that we care and that, we're in your neighborhood. So how can we serve you?
Wow, that's remarkable. So not only, just to add, not only did you create it for your peers to have kind of an outlet, something different to do than the regiment review, but then you turned it into something that was nice and entertainment for the community, to show that you were kind of engaged with them.
Right.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. I don't know. I guess I come from a family that really, we're solutionists. So if there's a problem, you don't talk about the problem, you just figure out a way to solve that problem. You don't grab it. So I never thought of it like, oh, I'm doing all of these things. It's just like, oh, well, that's a problem. So let me go. That's something that I can fix. That's tangible. So it was really just, that simple.
Thanks for sharing that.
That's perfect. So, you see these pieces kind of coming together, right? The community, caring about the community and so on. So after the Air Force, though, you turned back to art and said, all right, I'm going to be educated. I'm going to be a real artist. I'm going to go to SCAD. I'm going to go to Howard University. Was it like that?
No, I wish that it was that straightforward. No, sir. So when I got out the Air Force, because I had my son and he was, I think, turning 5. and I was deploying and I was working night shift and I was a sergeant. So I had, I think, 20 troops at the time. And it was just a lot of time spent away from him. And I was missing things. I was missing birthdays and, kindergarten graduations. And I really wanted my son, I grew up as a military brat, so I was never around my cousins and family. And I really wanted my son to grow up near his grandparents and have that sort of community. And so the opportunity to get out, to separate came, and I said, okay, well, I've done, almost 10 years. I'll do something else. I'll try my hand at something else. So I got out and I moved here to Savannah because my parents live in Richmond Hill. And I didn't have a plan. I really didn't. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know anything. So I just walked around downtown Savannah. I would drop my son off at school and I would just kind of walk around downtown Savannah trying to figure out my life. Like, okay, well, maybe I'll get inspired or maybe I'll see a job, wanted sign or something that will, spark my interest. And I'm putting all these resumes out for all these government, work at Stewart or at Hunter. And I'm even thinking about going overseas and contracting and doing intel work. And I see all this SCAD signs, SCAD. I'm like, what is SCAD? And someone's like, oh, it's an art school. And I'm like, I don't care. So, and I just, left it alone. And one day I'm walking by and there's this tour and there's this young girl and she says, you should hop on the tour. It's free. Just and see about our school. And I said, okay. So I hop on and we go to Kreitz Hall where the Performing Arts building is, and they're in the middle of auditions. And there was a professor there and he goes, do you have a talent? And I said, well, I could sing a little bit. And he was like, well, then audition. I said, well, I didn't prepare. And he said, I thought you said you had a talent. I thought you said you could do it. I said, okay. And so I sang like Little Mermaid and I got it. And so then I was like, well, I guess I should apply for this school because I have this
talent apparently. Yeah.
And so I applied and then I got a scholarship. And so then that's how I
That's amazing.
Gotcha.
It was not
serendipitous. Talk about serendipitous.
Yeah.
Well, you were walking around town and saying, let the spirit lead me, and it led you right into SCAD to sing about the Little Mermaid. So, hey,
right.
Logical. Yeah. And then, all right. And just, to kind of complete or take the next step in the background, what led you to Howard University after being at SCAD for some time?
So I was at SCAD and I was there almost 2 years. And I directed a couple of plays and I started producing. And then I became the president of the Multicultural Alliance Theater under SCAD. And I'm just recognizing that there's just not a lot of opportunities for people of color and in the theater industry. And I just felt, I remember just, talking to a professor and I was like, I don't think that you understand that there's not these opportunities because you don't have the same experience that I do as a person of color in the theater industry. And he said, you're absolutely right. I don't, and I don't know how to help you, to be honest with you. I have a friend, a really good friend who's a professor at Howard. And I think that you would probably be better off there. And so he said, you should apply. So coincidentally, my son's father lives in the DC area. And so I didn't apply. I just said, okay, well, I'll just go this summer. And so I packed up all my things, me and my son, and we moved to DC. And I go and do a tour of the school and the campus, and I meet a couple of professors, and then I go, okay, I'm gonna apply. And so I applied, and then I got, a couple of letter recommendations, and then I got in, and that's how I went to Howard.
Okay.
Nice.
So there's there's no method.
No, that's great. All right. Yeah. Well, I want to, and maybe we're going to skip around now a little bit. We can sort of have the history, but I've got a few things that I want to dig into because for a couple of reasons, right? Because it's interesting what you've accomplished, but also to see how we can use it to maybe help people who are looking at you as kind of an example. Like, okay, well, she did this. Now, what can I do? Right.
Right.
So one I want to ask you about is BizPitch. So BizPitch is a business. It's sort of like a Savannah Shark Tank sort of thing, right? Where people make pitches for business proposals, and it's like a competition, and the winner gets cash and prizes and trip. No, I'm just kidding. The business, you get, you know, money and opportunities, you know, to further. So what was your experience like going through BizPitch? And kind of maybe woven in with that as you tell the story, what would you recommend to people? You know, is it something you would recommend that they jump in? And what would you recommend for somebody thinking about going through the BizPitch process? You won it in 2019, right? So
I did.
tell us the story. Go ahead.
So BizPitch was very interesting. I kept seeing these advertisements for it, and I had this idea. And when I moved back to Savannah after Howard, I started building my connections. Everybody that I knew, I just had lunch with them, and I said, I got this idea in my head for a community space for people of color. How do I do it? And they're like, oh, you should talk to such and such. And then I would go on LinkedIn or Facebook and have another meeting and have another meeting and have another meeting. And so one of those persons was Coco Pappy, and we had breakfast, and she says, did you apply for BizPitch? And I said, no, I saw it. She says, well, you should apply. The deadline is today. So I go home and I apply,
wow.
and the deadline is midnight, and I literally clicked the button at like 11:58.
Wow.
And
wow.
So I found out that I was a finalist, and they pretty much provide everything for you. You go to a meeting, and they have mentors that help you figure out your pitch and your and how to structure and how to do your presentation. Luckily for me, I think I had a couple of advantages. One, I was an instructor in the Air Force. My last 5 years, I taught public speaking. And so, and I taught diplomacy for foreign affairs. So I know how to get in front of a group of people and talk. So that was pretty easy for me, but it was very scary, just invulnerable to be able to talk about your business. You're not talking about something that, is very surface level. And so I guess the advice that I would give anyone who's interested in doing it is define your problem. Define your problem in one sentence, and then define your solution in another. Like, you should be able to tell people exactly what you're doing and how you're going to solve it in 2 sentences, 30 seconds or less. And then once you figure that out, all the other stuff is easy, because now it's just numbers, plugging in numbers.
So some people call that a elevator pitch, right? Because you can give it on the time it takes to ride up in an elevator, right? It's like quick. So when you were giving this or preparing to give it, and it sounds like you didn't, you maybe had the advantage of not have a lot of time to worry about it. You only had time to do it, right? To the application. So what was it like going into that? I mean, were you thinking, oh, I'm going to win this, or I have no chance of winning this, or what was kind of your thinking going into it?
I don't think I was swayed either way. I saw it as an opportunity to network with more people. I figured, and I still figure this, the more people who know about me, the higher my chances of success are, right? Because then you have a bigger pool of people, more opportunities for connections and resources. So I never went into BizPitch like, oh my gosh, I need to win BizPitch. I went to BizPitch like, oh my gosh, I need to meet as many influential people that I possibly can. Every time I go into a room, that's my main driver. But I also have a couple of mantras that I've just, kind of, that are endeared to me. One of them is I don't think about the things that I do. And I know that's going to sound really, really, really crazy, and people go, oh, you should really sit down and think about how you're going to do this, but what happens for me, and I don't know about anyone else, but when I think about stuff, I start to get very fearful, and I start to doubt myself, and I start to really become apprehensive about my next move. And so I've developed a skill where I don't think about my next move, I just do it. And then whatever happens next, then I have to solve that problem, or whatever problems come. And it's worked for me 8 times out of 10, So, and then the other thing is I'm not patient. And I don't think that people say patience is a virtue. I think I don't think patience is a virtue. I think that if something isn't working, I think you need to pivot and figure out what else can make whatever you
I
want.
agree with that.
I don't think that you should be patient. I don't think that you should wait and wait for opportunities to come. I think that's a very, it just doesn't make sense logically when you really think about it, right? Like, are you going to sit and wait for someone to knock on your door and give you money to start your vision or whatever? No, you're not. You need to be constantly moving. And so that's kind of how I operate in life. It's like, okay, one decision leads to another, leads to another. And if I find myself stagnant, that means that something is not going well for me and I need to figure out my next.
So there's some really brilliant things in there that I want to circle back to, right, and tease a little bit, because this is really interesting. And as you are kind of acknowledging, this isn't kind of the normal way people think, or people are taught to think even, right? So going back to you know, where you were saying going into BizPitch, just treating it as, okay, I'm going to network, I'm going to meet people, you were a winner even before you went in. Because even if you didn't win the competition, you still won at what you were there for, because you were there for the connections and for all this other stuff, right? And so it's a really kind of neat judo move here to kind of sidestep what normally stops people, which is fear of failure. So you didn't even have to be concerned with fear of failure. You say, well, I can't fail. I'm going in to expose my ideas and get feedback, and that will happen, right? You know, I'm going to succeed at that. And you know, brilliant how you said about, well, I don't think too much about what I'm doing, right? Because you're right. I think you're exactly right. When people say I'm thinking, what they often mean is I'm worrying. I'm developing and building my base of fear about this. And if they put too much attention on that and build that too much, it'll stop them. They just won't take action. There won't be the action, right?
If I can interject, I had the pleasure of meeting Elbi Elm at The Hustle. She hustles, the creative coast. And we were hustling all right, but she was one of the leaders on the panel. And that's how I was first introduced to her and learned that she had won the Biz Pitch. And I sought you out immediately afterwards. And Kimberly Jones of Jones House and myself got in touch with you and met with you and talked to you. And you gave such great advice then, and I'm happy to learn even more now. But I had asked you, what is the advice that you give about BizPitch? Because we were thinking about and actually did participate, and I was one who worried and found it very stressful and tortured everyone. But the great advice you gave me was don't overthink it. And once you explained your philosophy to me, and I'm like, you know what? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I could only win from this. So I thank you for that then. And obviously I thank you for today, but because you continue to motivate and inspire. So thank you. Carry on, Barkley.
So I want to understand more about your current venture. So maybe let's shift and kind of talk about that, which is, you know, the Culturalist Union and what the Culturalist Union has become with the cafe plan and all of that. So you made a statement, I'll just kind of jump in here in the middle of it, that monolithic communities are not the way to go. You know, keeping people in their lane, keeping people sort of separate, gravitating to what's familiar and that sort of thing is not the way to go. And part of your vision is bringing people together, maybe across lanes somehow, and in that diversity, you know, a difference is made. So tell us how does that tie into the vision of the Culturalist Union and what you're thinking there?
So when I first, obviously I've always been, you know, intrigued about building communities and cultivating culture and things like that for forever. And so when I was at Howard University, I started seeing all of these co-working spaces popping up, and I thought they were really cool, right? You know, you have WeWorks, you have, you know, women-based ones like the Coven, people of color-based ones like Ethos Club and Gathering Spot in Atlanta. You see all of these spaces, you know, novel. But what I've noticed is that, like you said, they're very sub-segmented, and I think that's great because then you're around like-minded people and you get to communicate with those people. But what happens is you become very narrow-minded in your thinking or in your building or in your philosophy. And so I wanted to create a space here And then I realized that funding is an issue, and building community is an issue, and all of those things. And so I said, okay, well, how can I do this and kind of bootstrap it? And so I started doing events, vendor shows, yoga series, artist showcases, networking events, co-working at Novel, all of these things, bringing in, and I would try to find people who were completely different than what who I would normally hang out with, or what I would normally be doing, or and try to pair them with people that was opposite of their target audience, and see how that worked. And it kind of did. People liked what I was doing, and so I still wanted to create a brick and mortar space, because I think community coming together is important, and to be able to have a place that they can go to on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. is the goal. So that's what I said to myself.
So just to go back, and sorry to interrupt, but can you give us an example of what you mean? I'm really intrigued by what you say of, okay, I went for, because you said two things, right? You said, I went for people that I wouldn't normally, go for, like people who are really different. And then I asked them, I wanted to put them with people that they weren't normally connected to and weren't familiar with.
Right.
So can you give an example or two of what that looks like in reality?
Absolutely. So when COVID happened, we started doing these virtual co-working days. And so, for instance, one person was a singer, local songwriter. His name is Zulu Prophet.
Yes.
And he, is a recovering addict. He plays, funk psychedelic music. He's very eccentric. He has, his locks, and he's, very, he's a man who kind of beats to his own drum. And I put him in a room with these very, very polished, professional Black women who, have corporates, they're, college educated, they're, very straight lined and moving forward in their path. And I put them together in a room. And at first, I could tell in the Zoom that all the women were looking like, what?
Who is this cat?
That's great.
What is going on here?
That's great.
But then when I introduced him and I talked about his story, and I talked about how he was able to market himself, right? Not market his business, but market himself. And that's the first thing that you should be thinking about when you're doing any venture, is how you represent yourself, and how he's been able to, kind of build a name for himself, for himself. You could just tell on their faces that the tide was changing, and that they were getting something out of this, and
nice,
and that they were able to see it from a different perspective. Another way that I've done this is I had a group of teenage boys, and we were doing this tech class about how to take these minority kids and train them on social media and web development, so that they could in turn support Black businesses in putting them on the web, right? This is right during when COVID first started. And so I have this very, very, very blonde, blue-eyed, lace, Gothic woman who's my web developer come on and teach these, kids from, the South Side, and they're looking like, Miss Elbi, what do you like? But at the end, they're like, why do you wear black lipstick? And why do you do this? And why do you have on lace? And why'd you pick that? And why'd you do that? And she was able to talk. And then she would say, well, why do you wear your pants down? And why do you do this? And it just became this, they would just kind of talk and joke with each other. And at the end, they formed these unlikely friendships and connections. And I just feel like people shy away from confronting the differences that you have, right? Because most people lead with fear. They're afraid, I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to be offended. I just want to stay in my box, my hole. And what you realize is that most of the time, the differences are just a lack of education and lack of knowledge. And so when you start to ask questions, then you're able to kind of come to a commonality, even if it's, even if you realize like, I don't like this person, and that's perfectly okay. But at least you have some sort of, foundation to work.
And maybe sometimes you find the differences aren't even differences. Like, wow, you look different, different hair, what, you know what I mean? But we've got the same goals or something like that. We've got more common. And it's sometimes the differences are kind of not what you'd expect, because, I heard it said once that everybody lives in their own culture, and everybody is a culture of one, that people are unique, and I have my own culture, and it's kind of Barclay-ish, it's the Barclay-ish culture, right? And it's made up of whatever my experiences and stuff, and some are common with you and some are common with someone else. And you know what I mean? There's not like we can group people in different ways. We could say, all right, here are these different political categories, or these racial categories, or these religious categories, or whatever, but those may not be the real differences, So it's kind of brilliant and very bold, I would say, to say, all right, look, we're going to force this, right? We're just going to jam some people who are really different together and sort of see what happens, and it sort of fits your spirit of, now I'm not going to think about this too much. I'm just going to put them together, and it could blow up and be a disaster, or it could be really great and rich,
I don't know if it's just the analyst in me from, years in the military, but I love to see I'm like, I kind of watch along with everyone else. I'm like, what is going to happen next?
It's not an art program. It's a science experiment.
Right.
We'll see what happens.
Right. And so the coffee house, which really isn't a coffee house when you think about it, because it's a marketplace that's selling exclusive local Black artisan products. It's a event center where, we'll be hosting events, discussions, forums, lectures, art galleries. And then it's a gathering place that just so happens to sell coffee and tea, is what I like to call it. And that, I know I've gotten some pushback. There was an article in Savannah Morning News, and I've seen the comments, and they're like, oh, it's just, why is she only selling, Black artisan work? And the reason why is because, again, I don't think that people really understand, the wealth gap between, Black entrepreneurs and their counterparts. And I also don't think that people recognize the wealth of talent that is local, because you kind of, when you get to a certain point, you start to see the same people, and those people start getting opportunities, and
it's true.
You just kind of go with what you know. And so I wanted to give people a platform to be able to grow their own business, be able to grow their own brand and build, and revitalize this neighborhood in a place that is potentially gentrifying right before our eyes. And I don't think that gentrification is bad necessarily, because I think, and it's funny, we went to a buy local luncheon yesterday, and Clinton Edminster said the same thing. People want their communities to be good and better, right? You want to be able to walk your dog at 9 p.m. and not worry about something happening to you. You want to be able to walk to the grocery store or to the doctor's office, or have, tea with your neighbor on the porch and have a good life. But you also don't want to force people that's been living there their whole entire lives out of their neighborhood, right? You don't want to displace anyone. So this, to me, was a way that we could solve those problems. We're going to create a place where people can go and commune, but we're also going to give people an opportunity to make money and to contribute back to their neighborhood.
Awesome. Mindy, yeah, jump in.
Yeah, I'll make sure I'm not on mute. I heard about 2 years ago, I guess it was, there was an effort underway to revitalize the Waters Avenue corridor into an African-American art corridor, basically. Are you familiar with that? Has there been any movement on it? If you are, do you know anything about that?
I'm a little familiar with it. I know that COVID stopped a lot of that funding. And I think, honestly, when you're talking about splosh funding, I think people prioritize what they want to prioritize. And you all know art simply just gets pushed to the back when you're talking about, you know, what's necessary. Are we going to fix this highway, or are we going to put money into art? And they choose the highway when they don't recognize that the key formula to any of this stuff is art, right? The reason why you go to your favorite, whatever it is because you love the atmosphere, or you love the vibe, or, you know, the thing that gets you in the door. Your favorite restaurant, you love it because it appeals.
The aesthetics.
And how does that aesthetic work? Through art, right?
Right.
You know, when COVID was happening, what did everybody do? They paid attention to art. They bought art. They watched TV. They listened to music. Like, fund the thing that keeps you going when everything else stops.
Well, that's kind of, just to add to it, that's kind of why Hart came about, was a response to COVID, because so many of the artists were losing their contract jobs, not only with the theaters, but their independent work. So we strived and brought our teams together. How can we help? Well, let's help the artists learn the business of art, and let's create online classes to serve the community through virtual content. So the inner city youth, homeschool moms that are now doing more of that, and families at home that are restricted, and then senior citizens. So obviously when I saw what you were doing, I was like, oh, I need to talk to her.
Yes.
And so, and you know, we still want to promote your artists and help provide avenues in which, you know, they can generate revenue for themselves as we co-collaborate for community engagement, even during a virtual time, but when you know, we are able to go back out in the city. And as an art promoter and art advocacy, you know, we do want to work with the colleges, like you've identified, to showcase. There's not a business hub that helps artists learn the business of art. And as you produce those avenues, I mean, we would welcome the opportunity to help promote that and help bridge those gaps.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's very worth it.
So you made a comment earlier, Elbi, about you know, an artist marketing. You know, artists, I think sometimes, you know, they want their art to get out there, and if they could just, you know, borrow a magic wand, right, and wave it and say, okay, now my art is out there, right, and people can see it, and people can buy it and send me money, and, you know, all that stuff, right? But getting from them doing their art in their basement to that, right, is a journey, right?
It is a journey.
So you mentioned about artists learn some marketing in art school. So maybe you can comment on that, but is that enough? And if not, you know, what does that journey look like for an artist trying to get their art out somehow?
I absolutely don't believe that it's enough. Even when I was at SCAD, you know, we had a couple of classes that talked about entrepreneurship and marketing and things like that. I will say Howard University absolutely changed my outlook on marketing and how important branding and marketing is. Because when I got to Howard, I had a professor say, okay, you're now the theater marketing manager. And so sign this 1099, and it's also going to count for school credit. And we want sold out shows. That's your goal. And,
Okay.
and so get to work. And I was like, okay. And so you just start, you know, and so she says, here's a team of 3 other students, figure it out. And so because I had to jump into that, I realized, oh, wow. Well, for one, most people are operating on a next to nothing budget. How can we grow yourself? And I guess the fastest, easiest way to grow yourself and grow your community is networking and social media. And I think people,
that's good advice.
People, especially artisans, they think that their private social media is enough. And it's like, no, no one cares what you ate for lunch unless you're doing a topic on like what I do today as an artist. That's a really great story. But other than that, like, don't mix the two. Create yourself an online medium where you can promote and sell your art. And people love stories. They want to hear your story. They want to see how you've been able to create the thing that you've done, and they want to put a value to it. And so I just,
maybe we could just break that down a little bit, right? Because again, we're very into what you're saying as well, because it's part of what Hart is trying to do, right?
right.
But from your perspective, what should, so here, let's say someone's an artist, right? And they've got some work and they've gotten some feedback here and there, like when their friends see their art or when other people see their art, they're very complimentary. So they feel like, well, I've got something here with my art.
Right.
And maybe they have their personal social media accounts, like you say, and maybe occasionally they put something about their art. But what are the next steps? Like what should they start doing tomorrow based on what you know?
I would say I would literally go on Google if I were them, and I would figure out all the festivals, all the art focused events, all the nonprofits, all the everything that you could possibly do and connect, right? I would go on LinkedIn and I would schedule coffee dates, you know, even if it's just a walk in the park, whatever, you know, funds are limited, coffee's expensive, but, you know, and just get out there and bring your art with you, bring your portfolio with you. Like you should be a walking advertisement. Every time that you meet someone, they should leave knowing that you are an artist and this is the work that you can produce. You should go to the city and figure out who their you know, art fund is, and who you know, does the funding for more you know, murals, and who does the funding for corporate. Going to your local corporate, you know, sponsor and saying, hey, I would love to, you know, I think I walk past this building every day and I think it would be beautiful if there was a huge sunflower, and I think it's right on your brand. You know, do you have some funding for that? Like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I mean, they're not going to beat you up. The worst they're going to say is no, right? Or not right now. And they might even have a resource or a next person that you can talk to. Because if you shoot, and just an analogy, if you shoot the basketball only one time and you miss, then you just missed it. But if you shoot that basketball 100 times and you got 20 shots, you're pretty wealthy as an artist. So
that's a great analogy.
Put yourself out there.
Well, that's brilliant. I you know, it sounds so simple, you know, as you hear that, right? And
most of the time, the only thing, like, and I think that's why I don't think about the things that I do, is because most of the time what's going to happen is if you think about it, you're going to scare yourself, and you're going to
that's the fear again. Yeah.
Do that. I'm not going to walk up to that person. But dare yourself, right? Like, dare yourself. I dare myself all the time. I go up to places and I'm like, all right, I dare you to go in there and talk to that person. And I do. And then at the end, I feel really good about it. So don't think about it too much.
Brilliant. Don't think, just
like
do.
Great advice you kept telling me. Don't overthink it.
You know, this is kind of again a flip to the thing, but it's almost like, I wonder if sometimes what the person is afraid of is actually the right direction to go. You know, because there's some kind of confront in it. There's something in it that they see as a potential. You know, like if there was no connection, if there's no fear or anything, maybe that's not as promising a direction. Maybe the place to look is the place that's a little scary, you know, and go so through and go that way.
I will tell you, I mean, I spent 9 years in the Air Force. And even when I went to Scatter, when I went to Howard, those to me were very, very like easy things to do. This has probably been the last 2 years of doing the Culturalist Union has probably been the most difficult and the hardest, because I'm faced with confronting myself every day. Like every day I have to, you know, confront myself and do something that I'm scared to do. And sometimes I'm not gonna lie to you, I get very fearful, and I'll call a friend and I'll say, okay, I wrote this email. I'm going to email it to you. Here's my password. Go and send this for me. Don't tell me, just send it. Or
that's great.
You know, or I'll say, okay, call this person. Here's the script, and pretend to be me and schedule it. And they'll go, okay. And so I've had people go, oh, you sound so different on the phone.
Oh, well, I had a cold or something, you know.
Wow.
Because
Wow.
I was very, very fearful. And so it's like, okay, but I need to get this done. So let me recruit some help.
There's such a, I guess this is such a brilliant idea too. I actually have never heard this before. And the reason it's brilliant is I used to teach negotiating, among other things, right? And one of the things you learn very early on in negotiating is somebody can always negotiate better for you than you. And you can always negotiate better for someone else than for yourself.
Oh,
So by
wow.
setting up that other person, see, if I'm gonna, it would be hard for me to pretend to be you, I guess, in a phone call or meeting. But if I do that, I'm not so attached, right?
Right.
And I'm more free to just be, let it fly, right? And yeah,
Right.
that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
I've had cousins do it. I've had friends do it. I'm just like,
Wow.
here's the script, call, and they'll be texting me like, this person said this, and I'm like, okay, say this back.
Say this back. Yeah.
Text back. You're texting too fast. So,
Wow.
I have done that, and I think you can always ask for forgiveness if you get caught, but you gotta do whatever you gotta do.
But at the same time, you knew it had to be done. And
Absolutely.
so you're like, okay, I'm having a moment of deep breaths. Can someone else is going to have to punch it and step in for me, right? Batter up.
Because I think when people have to define their why or what they deem as success and what they deem as failure. I don't have a definition for success yet, but failure to me is living a mundane 9 to 5. Not to say that that's wrong for anyone. My parents have that lifestyle. I had that lifestyle for a long time, and it's fine. But if I had to go back to that and I wasn't able to, actualize this coffee house and do those things, then that would be a failure to me. So I can't fail. So I got to figure out another way to get it done. And I know that I'm not brave enough to get it done right now this way. So let me figure out a different way to get it done.
Well, someone once said that, we'll end up far more regretting things we didn't do or didn't try than we will regretting things we did do or did try or failed at, So, all right, let's come right up to date then. So where are you right now with this TCU Cafe? I mean, can I come and have a cup of coffee there yet, or not quite yet, or where are you with it?
We have a location.
Okay.
We are still negotiating construction, so I don't want to announce the location just yet.
Fair enough. Yeah.
We have a location. We are in talks with some general contractors. I actually have to go in like an hour and go meet a person to give me another quote. We have partnered with SCAD to do complete rebranding of TCU. So I'm really
nice.
Congratulations.
We have our grant from American Express that was $25,000 plus a lot of like mentorship and help actualizing this business. And so if everything goes well, we should be open by June.
By June. Okay.
That's right around the corner.
Terrific. And it'll be the perfect timing, because that's approximately the time frame when people feel like, all right, there'll be enough vaccines out, people will be a lot more comfortable getting together in person, and we'll kind of be moving out of this whole time of COVID.
Absolutely. Yeah. So so that's where we're at right now. We're still looking for funding because we have to do the build out, and we have to buy furniture and equipment, and we want to hire people, and we want to give them an equitable wage, a living wage. And so we're still looking for about $100,000 to $125,000 in funding. But I'm not worried. I think that I've put it out there. People know about us. People are excited, so it'll come.
Well, you don't have time to be worried. I mean,
you're too busy.
Honor.
Well, I just wanted to add in any of those because we are a resource center and we like to share information in our newsletter, our digital marketing. Mindy is helping us with our digital marketing. She used to be former international sales for Chamber of Commerce. She's involved in a lot of boards and a lot of community programs in Savannah, and we're working together to get the word out. And so we would really like to help you with your initiative to share in what your needs are to the community. And if we come across any corporate sponsorships or funding opportunities that we can co-collaborate together, we'd be happy to share that initiative with you. And actually, we'd like to have you on the show as a regular. And when you have new artists or new initiatives or new programs that you would like to share with our viewers in our community, we partnered with a lot of Marjorie Young with Carriage Trade helps us a lot as our mentor through Score Savannah, and Tom Glazier and Michael Siegel. And so we're all just trying to make Savannah a better community. And with entrepreneurs like you, it'll definitely happen. So let us know how we can help.
Thank you.
We're ready to have a show from the coffee house here.
Yeah.
We definitely should have a show from the coffee house. That would be awesome. And you know, we have some you know, things that we're thinking about bringing Million Cups to the coffee house, you know, on a Wednesday morning.
Nice.
So entrepreneurs can be able to pitch their problems and people be able to solve it. But I'll do a shameless plug. We are still crowdfunding on I Fund Women, which is a women-centric crowdfunding platform similar to GoFundMe. And so if you go to www.ifundwomen.com/projects/culturist-union, you will find all things TCU.
Well, be sure to send us that link so we can get it on our
yeah, we'll put that link up there as well so people can see it.
So we'll get it.
I Fund Women /project/culturist union with hyphen culturist hyphen union like that. Right. And then you also have a main website that's kind of the center of your thing. What's that?
If you go to culturistunion.com, it'll take you to the crowdfunding campaign.
So sorry, it's theculturistunion.com or just culturistunion.com?
Theculturistunion.
Theculturistunion.com. All right, just make sure everybody gets that unclear.
Theculturistunion.com. We're named after her right here, Madam C.J. Walker. She in 1917 she used to put on a I don't even know what conference, and it was called the Madam C.J. Walker Hair Beauty Culturist Union of America.
Nice.
And she advocated for entrepreneurs to give back to their community, and you know, she donated money, and she, you know, had over 10,000 employees that she, you know, helped to, you know, benefit their families and their communities. And so in her spirit, that's how we got our name.
Excellent.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
I never knew that story.
So your son, is following in mom's footsteps? I mean, artist, Air Force, promoter, entrepreneur. What's it looking like there?
Singer.
It's so funny.
Choir.
He sings. He sings. We had a little video out for his birthday where he was singing. Today was career day actually, and so he's kind of like me. He's scatterbrained. So this morning he goes, "Mom, it's career day," and I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you want to do?" And he's like, "I want to be a boss," and I'm like, "Okay, well, what do bosses wear?" And he's like, "I want to be a CEO. I need a suit." I said, "Well, you don't have a suit." And so we put a little tie on his, you know, button-up shirt, and I got him. He took my name tag that I wear when I'm out networking, and so we just taped his name over it, and it says CEO of the Culture.
So cute.
And he's like, "I'm gonna take over, you know, TCU when you die." I'm like, "Well, don't kill me off yet."
Well, no,
wait. He already has ambition.
So hold on a second. You said something. I know we just got a few minutes left in the show here, but name tag that you wear when you're out networking. What's this all about?
Yes, I have. I don't have it because he has it right now.
Oh, okay.
It has our logo and it has my name and it says founder on it, founder of the Culturist Union, and it has our website underneath. So, you know, I know that people are like Elbi, and a lot of people spell it, you know, phonetically, or they think it's just a nickname. I'm like, no, it's my name. So, you know, I wear the name tag, and so that way people can, you know, recognize, and they're like, what is the Culturist Union? Or they can't pronounce it. So it's just easier for people. And
Well, what a great idea. I mean,
That
you know,
is a great idea.
you know what I think about, you know, when you go to a conference, right? When you go to a conference, everybody's got name tags, right? And it's wonderful because you can see who they are, you see where they're from, their company, and it facilitates networking. But out in the regular world, for some weird reason, people don't walk around with name tags. But why not? You know?
I walk around, and because you know, and it's kind of hard to like explain to people what I'm doing, because it's not like I can say, oh, I have a coffee shop down on, you know, such and such. I can't say that right now. And so unless you've, you know, actually heard about TCU and what we've been doing, you have no idea. And so it's just easier to have the name tag. And
I think I'm going to go make myself a name tag to wear around, you know.
I think we're going to do that too. I've been taking
some
notes.
of us might need several, you know, for different things, but you can have more than one name tag, right? And you choose which one you are today.
I'm a board member for Buy Local, so I had my Buy Local
one for that. Okay.
And then I had the one above, so I'm like, well, I guess
fantastic. Well, so I guess just in conclusion here, Elbi, anything else that you'd want to share with our groups, or any inspirational words you throw out to artists or artists who want to do business, or what else, anything you'd like to plug in addition to what you've mentioned already?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I just would like to reiterate to artists to just do it, right? Just don't quit your job and just like go off and be crazy, because you need to eat and you need to pay your bills. But do whatever you can do in whatever vein you can do it. And also don't think that you have to wait until you have this much money or this much status. Like, figure out what you can do right now to solve your problem, and then do that thing. And then, you know, you can always find me at the Culturalist Union on Facebook and Instagram. If you message me, I'm the one who messages back, so you'll get to me.
Nice.
Excellent. All right, that's great. So Honor, Mindy, concluding thoughts for the show today?
I just want to thank you for allowing us to hear your story. And I learned a lot from you today. I took some notes, and we look forward to sharing it with our audience and our readers. Thank you, Elbi. Let's stay in touch.
And I love what you're doing in the Savannah community. You know, we are by nature an artsy community, but this takes it up to new levels, and we've seen the development of Starland District and all that it's brought to the table, but there's room for so much more. And we just really appreciate your efforts in bettering the Savannah community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right.
And I appreciate you all for having me. I appreciate the time. It's great.
Well, our pleasure. I mean, we've gotten a lot out of this just ourselves, I think, you know, and very inspirational and encouraging to artists and entrepreneurs, and really anybody who's ever stopped by Fear, I think, has a lot to gain from what you've said. So we'll wrap it up there. So I'm Barclay Brown. This is Honor Lind and Mindy Shea for the Hart Initiative. Our website, by the way, is heartinit.org, as in put your heart in it. So heartinit.org is our website. You can find all this. You'll find some stuff about Elbi and links to her various resources and websites and things like that, so that you all see what's going on about her and upcoming shows and other things that we'll be doing. So that's it for today. And thank you very much. We'll see you next time.